The new NBA season is right around the corner, so let's celebrate it with a rankings list of the Eastern Conference. What's up, everybody? It's JJ Buckets, and I know it's been a while. We'll talk about it in the outro, but in the meantime, usual drill before we start this video, make sure you're leaving a like on it. It really does help the algorithm. I know you hear it all the time, but it does. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. Plus, if you plan on doing irresponsible sports betting in the near future, just make sure to check out my link in the description below. So we're going to start things off here by looking at the categories, and I personally like the name for some of these, one of these in particular. So we have our contenders, we have the one or two moves away, playoff team, play-in hopefuls, and my personal favorite, in the pooper for Cooper. Now, I know a lot of people have taken to, tanking for next season as being called capture the flag, which perfectly fine, perfectly good, perfectly acceptable name. I think it's great. But I've seen, I can't remember who it was. Somebody on Twitter posted in the pooper for Cooper. And I just looked at that. I'm like, man, that's hilarious. And I'm going to use that today. And let's kick things off with a team that is absolutely in the pooper for Cooper. And it is the Brooklyn Nets. Now, I know there's a quote out there from Day'Ron Sharp talking about the fact that, oh, people are sleeping on the Nets. Bro, we're gonna stay sleeping because, man, the Nets are bad, and like the Nets don't want to be good. That's the thing. Like, they have plenty of cap space for the upcoming season to, revamp their roster. They also now have control over, a lot more of their draft future, including this upcoming pick, which again is a great thing for them because you probably want to land somebody like a Cooper Flagg, like an Ace Bailey to add to that Nets team that otherwise just does not have that much going for it right now. They're going to be one of the worst teams in the East. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And yeah, like, there's not much more discussion to be had here. The Atlanta Hawks, I think, are a little bit better. I think they're playing hopefuls. At the end of the day, Trae Young, I think, is still good enough to guide you to a play-in spot. Obviously, that could change if they end up trading Trae Young before the end of the year for whatever reason, which is not the most unrealistic thing to expect. Besides for that, though, I like some of the interesting things they got going in their roster. I'm really intrigued to see what Dyson Daniels does in a potential expanded role. I'm also intrigued about what Zachary Reese-Shea looks like in his rookie year. I think they're good enough to make the play-in, but not really, I guess, big enough threat past that. The easiest team on here out of any of them by any means to rank is definitely the Boston Celtics, who are going right up to the contenders with, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The defending NBA champions, the core is intact. A lot of them got extended this offseason. On top of that, they brought in, a sneaky addition that I think could pay dividends to their bench production. Lonnie Walker, I think, could be a good fit off the bench for the Celtics and boost them even a little bit more so than they were already good last season. Like, there's not much to be said here past that, is there? Like, the Celtics are arguably, like, the best team in the NBA. At worst, they're one of the three best teams in the NBA heading into next season. So they're obviously contenders. So the Charlotte Hornets are an interesting team to me, right? I feel like every year there's a team that kind of exceeds expectations, and I think a prime candidate for that this year would be the Charlotte Hornets. Now, a lot of this is obviously contingent on the fact that LaMelo Ball stays healthy for the entire year, but if he does, I really do think they have a really nice young core coming together in Charlotte. Between him and Brandon Miller, I think, is the 1-2 punch there, in whatever order you want to debate that as, because I do think Brandon Miller is going to be really good eventually. He's already a good player now, but I think he's going to be like an all-star level talent eventually. I like Charlotte. I think they're playing hopeful this year. They might be a playoff team. They might be a playoff team if everything works out for them, but at the very least, I think they're playing hopeful. On the other hand, I think the Chicago Bulls are, like, what, if not the most dysfunctional franchise in the NBA, like one of the 2 to 3 most dysfunctional franchises in the NBA. Yeah, the Bulls are not good. Josh Giddey is not going to save them from being bad, and I don't know what the hell they're doing with Vucevic and Zach LaVine. I don't know if they're going to manage to get off those guys, but I don't think the intention in Chicago is to be a good team this year, and I think they'll take the opportunity to trade guys away when it comes up, and I think they are firmly in the race to get a guy like Cooper Flagg, Ace Bailey, Nolan Traore, whoever else you want to throw in that mix. The Cleveland Cavaliers. I think the Cleveland Cavaliers are a playoff team, but I really don't think they're better than that. I don't personally like the makeup of the roster. I don't think they're complementary of one another in terms of the skill sets. I don't think Garland is complementary of Donovan Mitchell. I don't think Mobley and Allen are complementary of each other. I think Cleveland eventually has to realize that this core does not fit together well enough to compete for anything of significance other than the playoff spot. So until they do, they are firmly a playoff team, but they are nowhere near any type of contention like whatsoever. On the other hand, the Indiana Pacers, I do quite like. Hey, they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. And I know a lot of people are going to talk about the fact that, they had a little bit easier path there because of some of the injuries. Again, you can only really play who's in front of you. And for the Pacers, they did a great job of that. And they had a very competitive series with the Celtics. I know on paper it looks like a sweep. Those games were fairly close. There were a lot of really, really fun games to watch there. And I think Halliburton and Siakam is a great 1-2 punch. They also have the pieces that if they want to go chase somebody on the trade market, they absolutely could in terms of like some of the young talent that they have on the roster. So I think, quite frankly, the Pacers are perfect for the category of 1 or 2 moves away from obviously being contenders. The Pistons, on the other hand, yeah, they are definitely in the pooper for Cooper. They had a major overhaul of their front office, and that kind of reset the timeline in Detroit. They've had a couple of additions to try and add shooting to the roster, which I'm sure Cade Cunningham is eternally grateful for. I don't think it's going to be enough. I still think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the East, and quite frankly, that's probably where they want to be at the moment. The Miami Heat are interesting, right? Because what's happening with Jimmy Butler, right? His contract, well, he's going to have a player option at the end of the season. Most people, I think, would anticipate that he's going to decline that player option. It's a contract year for him. What does that look like for Miami? Does Miami end up moving off Butler before season's end? Does Miami actually look really good because Butler is motivated all season? They're a tough team to hone in on. They're anywhere man, they're either a playoff team or they're a play-in hopeful, depending on how you feel about them and what you feel like they end up doing by the end of the year. The roster, ultimately, I don't think is going to really move anybody. I think I'm going to put them at the top of play-in hopefuls, but they're probably a playoff team. Milwaukee Bucks. I think the Bucks go into 1 or 2 moves away, mostly because I think the roster around Giannis is fading in terms of its championship quality, and they haven't done a good job really supporting Giannis recently. The Damian Lillard move was a disaster. I do like the pickup of Gary Trent Jr. in the offseason. I think that's a perfect complementary player to Giannis. But there's still so many flaws with that roster. I think Doc Rivers being hired in Milwaukee was a massive mistake, and I think they are absolutely gonna pay for it. I think they'll be like a 4 seed, maybe a 3 seed, whatever it is. But at the end of the season, I think once the playoffs roll around, they're not really on the same level as some of the better teams in the conference. And that's crazy considering that you have like one of the 3 best players in basketball on the team. But I don't really think they've done a lot to, earn people's trust. And I really don't think they're genuinely a contender heading into this season. The New York Knicks, on the other hand, I really do think they're a contender. I think they've made so many fantastic moves. I think they've positioned themselves to have as good of a season as they've had in a very long time. I thought the Cat trade was so weird because it came out of nowhere, but you look at it, and I like the idea of having Cat just open up the floor for Jalen Brunson attacking the basket. I really believe that has a lot of potential to work in all the right ways in New York. I think they're going to be one of the best teams in the East. I think they're going to be one of the best teams in the NBA. Should they stay healthy enough? I think this is a genuine championship contender this season, and they could maybe still tinker a little bit with some of the supporting pieces, like the depth pieces, but overall, I think their core looks great, and I think they're going to be a real threat. The Orlando Magic. I think the Orlando Magic are probably they're definitely a playoff team. I don't know if I would quite put them in one or two moves away just yet. I do like the addition of Contavious Pope, excuse me, quite a decent bit. However, I still think they need a lot more offensively, right? In particular, like they could really benefit from some additional playmaking. Right now, their offense last season lacked a lot of creativity. They were very predictable and they were very easy to scheme against. And naturally, they have one of the best defenses in basketball, and that's going to take them a long way. It definitely will. But when it comes to playoff time, I think, if teams are having an easy time shutting down your offense, you're not really gonna do significant damage. I think a potential like superstar leap from Paolo Banchero could be a big difference maker for this team, but I think a lot of it just genuinely does rely on him and like how much better he is this season. Because if he doesn't take a really big leap, I think they're still fine. I think they're still a good playoff team. I just really don't think the ceiling is much higher than that. Oh, the Philadelphia 76ers. They're the worst. They're absolutely the worst, because anytime that you look at the Sixers and you want to be excited about the Sixers, they disappoint relative to expectations. And in spite of that, I'm gonna throw the Sixers up in contenders. Look, I think if there was any year that they were finally going to shed the label of just being disappointments and underachievers, it's going to be this one. I think this is as good of a roster as Joel Embiid has had during his time in Philadelphia. I mean, obviously you had the one year where you had like Simmons, Butler, Harris, and JJ Redick surrounding him. That was a tremendous team, right? But besides for that team, like this is right up there, right? Like they did a really good job surrounding Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid with the kind of supporting pieces they need to push for a title. I really like pickups of guys like Caleb Martin. I like that they found a way to bring back Kelly Oubre Jr. They've done a tremendous job surrounding their, two stars. Jared McCain's somebody that could be a very under the radar rookie. I think he could maybe, like, if he finds enough time in the rotation, he could maybe sneak his way into some rookie of the year conversations. Do I think he'll win it? Probably not, but also the race is completely wide open this year with this rookie class, so you never really know. I like a lot of what Philadelphia has done. If they don't find a way to contend with this roster, I think that really tells you all you need to know about whether or not you can build a championship team around Joel Embiid. I really do think that's just entirely the case. The Washington Wizards are going to be one of the easier picks here. We have two teams left, and they're both going to be fairly easy. I think the Wizards are in the pooper for Cooper. I thought they had a solid 2024 NBA draft, picking up a good rookie class there. I think they're still missing that key piece that they, build their entire rebuild around. Like they don't have that number one option that their rebuild is going to be fully encompassing. I guess I don't know if that phrase makes sense, but you know what I'm saying, right? Yeah, they're going to be bad. They're going to be one of the worst teams in the conference, and I think they wouldn't have it any other way this season. Now the Toronto Raptors. I think the Toronto Raptors comfortably go into play-in hopefuls. They have a good young core budding. I think you'll get the first season of Scotty Barnes as the leading guy. I think RJ has shown plenty of reason to be excited about where his career goes from here. I think Quickly will be solid this season. And in particular, I know I've looked up some of the advanced numbers, for the four-man combination of like Pirtle, Barnes, Quickly, and Barrett, who didn't see a lot of playtime last season together because of injuries and other such. But when they did play together, they had a really good net rating. Do I think that's sustainable over the entire season for the Raptors? Maybe not. But do I think that's good enough to get them into potentially playing contention? Sure. Do I think the Raptors want to be in playing contention, considering how great this draft class is projected to be? Maybe not, but with the current roster that they have, I do think this is a team that can push for a play-in spot. I don't know if they ultimately end up there, but they certainly can push for that spot. Yeah, that pretty much does it for me today. So let me know what you folks think in the comment section below. What rankings do you disagree with here? Who would you move up in what tier? Who have I overrated? Who have I underrated? Yeah, just Give me the scoop on where you think I'm wrong. Other than that, folks, yeah, it's been a pleasure being back. I took a little bit of a hiatus there. It was the dead time of the off season, so I felt like if I was gonna do it, which I kind of wanted to, that was the time for it. But happy to be back, happy to be making videos, and hopefully I will see you guys back on YouTube plenty of times from here. Yeah, end of the video. I'm gonna repeat the usual drill one more time. If you haven't already done so, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it if you are new here. Other than that, it's been JJ Buckets. It's been a pleasure, and I will see everybody next time.